All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And if I look a little different, sound a little different, well, it's because I'm a little different. But no, today I just had a tooth extracted, and these guys thought it would be funny to make me do a podcast while I'm under the influence of what the dentist has done just an hour ago.
They actually pulled one out?
Oh, yeah. See?
Oh, that's
I got
disgusting.
a freaking hole in my head.
Really
Have you looked at that?
Kind of like he was just in the office.
Oh, what are you
going
going
like
to do with it?
this,
Just leave it?
like an alligator.
Just leave a hole?
No, I'm not going to leave a hole.
What do you do?
Yeah,
You
let me
fill
see
it in
now.
with concrete. That's what Shane's here for.
No, you put a new. They're going to give you a fake one? They don't do it the same day?
Oh,
It's a
jeez.
big-ass hole.
I think they got two.
That's what I thought.
That's humongous.
It feels like half the side of my head is missing.
Does it feel weird to lick it?
I don't lick it. It hurts.
Oh, there's a hole there.
There's pain right now.
Can you feel your lips?
I can feel my lips.
I was hoping that during the
didn't feel his
podcast
lips.
he was going
He
to
starts
blah, 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 you know, like they just
I have to be
fly
careful
everywhere.
drinking. Luckily, Grizzly makes these with like a sippy cup type thing because otherwise I'll be dribbling all over myself.
You need that whether you had the
You guys
dentist
are
there
going
or
to watch
not.
this one because he's going to
All right.
blah, blah, blah,
So-
blah, blah, blah.
But let me get back to I'll introduce our special. We do have a couple special guests, which you guys know who those two are. But then we have a true special guest, and he's back. We're going to have to come up with a name for Shane, something about the South, because he represents the South in an extremely good way from Kentucky, but he lives here in Iowa. So anyhow, we'll get to him in just a second. M Badger 21 is one of the people that I want to thank you for taking the time and writing in a review for us. And we sure appreciate you guys doing that. And we want to make sure that you guys continue to do that because those reviews boost the ratings, which help with not just boosting the ratings, but gets us to reach more people, which gets more people interactive. So hopefully our topics and the things that we're doing get even better. So M Badger 21, appreciate you, and I agree with you. He said God-fearing, good people that like to talk hunting. So something to that extent. All right.
He's a non-slacker. So the rest of
I don't
the
think the-
slackers go
Oh,
leave
yeah.
reviews, please.
I don't think the dentist gave you
Unless
enough
they're
drugs.
crappy, then you can keep them to
I
yourself.
don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not commenting on the drugs because I know what you guys will turn it into. So we're gonna go. But today's topic
What's that supposed to be?
is
I told him the dentist didn't give him enough drugs.
see.
Yeah, but what would we turn it into?
I don't
Just
know.
stop it. We're not going into. You
Lay
guys
down,
will turn
Christo.
it into like what kind of drugs
Okay.
that we've been growing and what we're selling and all this other stuff. And
We don't advertise
Growing
that.
drugs?
I know.
Drugs?
okay, so but today's
First rule of
topic
Fight
is
Club, you don't mention Fight
T-
Club.
today's topic is deer ages. And we were bringing this topic up. I know this is kind of an odd time. It's not really an odd time. We just got all of we sent 18 sets of teeth out to have them aged in the cementum process. That means we're not reading the bottom of the jaw, or they're not reading the bottom of the jaw. They're cutting into two of the bottom front teeth and looking at the age of those, and then they come back with an age. And it's supposed to be, in my opinion, all the ones we sent in, and that's why we got Shane here, because he sent some in with us at the same time. And we're going to talk about because he's got the only discrepancy I think that we have on here anywhere. And so we all want to judge that and see whether we disagree with Shane or whether we agree with Shane. But we've got some sheds sitting here. I know many of you that are listening to the podcast cannot see what we've got sitting here, but we'll try to describe them the best we can and talk about the characteristics. Easton's got a set of sheds from the buck he killed, which, he killed a
That was
3-year-old.
The worst part.
See, you should have shot the other 3-year-old.
That's what I was just going to say. I was like, you know what? I thought I was doing the right thing, and I had the day before that 3-year-old come by, and we're like, we're going to let him go. Well, I killed the other one the next day, so unintentionally. He looked a lot different.
But that
that kind of goes to prove how hard it is to understand
these
their
suckers.
bodies.
Man,
Everybody I've talked to, too, you look at the video of him, and he does not look like a young deer.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm just going to say this, and if this doesn't cause controversy, I don't know what is. It's impossible to age every deer.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It's impossible to do it
Unless you
and
know
get it
them,
correct.
and unless you know them for their entire life, which even then you're going to miss the first
What do
year.
you mean by age them
Well-
accurately? Like from seeing one that you've never known that's 4
you
or
can
5 years
you
old
can
or
take
something
all
like that?
these charts and everything that everyone says. Look at their back, look at their chest, look at their facial features, look at their hair color, look at their antler size, look at the body size, the dimension. You can do all that, and I can show you a deer on here. Throw it out the freaking window because he wasn't anywhere. He doesn't fit anything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely deer that we know of for sure that.
Do I know which one you're talking about?
I'm talking about the deer that Mom shot this year.
Oh, yeah.
He comes back at 5 years old, and that deer had no characteristics of a 5-year-old deer.
Junior also was one of the best as far as that deer was 6 years old. We ended up weighing 170 some pounds, and they're telling you by 6 they should have a swayed back and they're gonna have a big gut and all that.
Big front end.
Never had any of it ever.
No.
Like if you went off their chart, you said this deer's 3, and then you just said next year he's still 3. And you said next year he's still 3.
Yeah, it didn't change.
However, I
Except
think
his antlers got bigger.
So
however, the only thing that would make all this an argument is if this isn't accurate.
it can't be inaccurate.
Well, that's what Shane's here for.
Well, hold on. And Shane, I'm not trying to take away your thunder,
And when
but
I say
They don't
this,
necessarily give
I'm
you a-
referring to cementum aging.
They don't give you
Okay.
like 100. They give you a grade on it, correct?
right,
Like
which
as in-
is an A, which tells you that it's
It's
between
90
95 and 99% correct. Here's what I'm going to tell you is that we did a little test of our own. We sent 2 teeth from the same deer in under 2 different names.
we tricked them.
They
Which-
came back the same age,
To-
which is all that they could do, which actually came back the same age of the deer that we thought was. I was expecting him to come back 3, but my point is we didn't know that deer, and then he came back at 5. Since these teeth have come back, Warren has gone and pulled up video footage of the deer from trail cameras last year, and he looked identical to what he did this year, the year Karen killed him. So it starts to lend to the, okay, yeah, he could have been 5. Could have been.
To be fair, though, that's a pretty small subset.
That's a
of
very
data.
small subset.
One deer.
But
we have a lot of other.
I was going to say we have other
data.
years that we can go off,
Yes.
deer that we knew, and the ones that we knew. And so let's just dive into the oldest deer on here. We knew this deer, and he came back at 8 years old. We called him KB,
Well, doesn't that say 8 to 9?
Yes.
and that it says 8 to 9 and I can't remember age range, but their official age that they gave him was an 8.
Yeah. And there's only a couple in there that look
well, it
like
says
they
8 to
could,
9 right there.
Yeah, that's age range.
Oh my gosh, does that make you sick to see your deer was 3 or 4? Ooh, yeah.
Which one?
Flat
Flat crab.
But so that's the only thing I'm.
Okay. Anyways, go back to KB and finish your point on that real quick before I
Okay,
get you
so-
distracted.
We know KB, at least we felt like we knew him well enough that we saw him when he was 2 years old. And then I think we even went back and found trail cam photos of him from when we're like, there he is at 1. But he was 2 years old. Mom passes the deer. It's the first deer she's ever passed in her life. And she agreed to do it because I convinced her. I'm like, I'm telling you, he's 2 years old. That little tiny
We'll
neck.
name him after you. That's what you told her.
Yeah, and we
She's
did.
like, okay, I'll keep him around.
So we named him KB for Karen's buck. And we haven't been able to kill the deer. And so we've watched him year after year. We have lots of sheds from this deer. And we had him pegged for 8 years old. He came back 8 years old.
I thought we had him at 7.
Mm-mm.
We've known him for a total of 8.
We knew he was at least 8.
Oh.
Yeah, we did
I
a
knew
video.
he was ancient.
We put a video out on that on Instagram not too long ago of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
And all, I mean, we have trail camera photos and everything following him until he was 8 years old. The other ones on there would be more of a what we thought, but we knew they were older deer. We'll get in Shane's deer. We owe Shane a ton because when you go back and look at what happened there,
The only thing I think we should
What are you
Talk
guys looking at
about-
two different graphs because they're different?
yeah, what is yours? That's
I had to
yours.
print. I printed mine out.
So
separately.
I've got the official one from Matson's lab.
this
which
is
No,
too.
this is theirs too.
This is
It's
two.
just in
I
a
just put it.
different form.
I just put it on. I just copied and pasted it to a different piece of paper.
Did yours have the AH deal on there?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So I will preface this with some of these have. So there's an A rating, which is the highest age. The highest A ages indicate that the cementum characteristics of the tooth section very nearly match those of the standardized cementum aging model for the species and the tooth. which every single one we have, except for Flat Crab, which was one of Shane's, was an A rating. That one was a B rating.
Which is
But
still
then-
85 to 90 or something, isn't it?
I believe that's 95 to 99% on the A.
It tells you right.
Yeah, but B. I'm saying what's B?
Um,
What's the percent of that being accurate?
Right here's A.
For B, reliability ages, there is evidence to support the result, and the correct age is expected to be within the range given in the age range field. So they're still saying that it's
Still good. They know what it is.
He's either
yeah.
3 or 4, somewhere in there.
so. But the only other thing that I will mention is that on some of these, like KB, Flat Crab, Brahma, there is something in the notes which is categorized as AH, abnormal histology, unusual cementum layering and or tissue removal. I'm not sure exactly. I guess is that supposed to mean how we took them out?
I don't know, because that's more than half of our deer we sent. So what do they mean? They just haven't seen Iowa deer teeth or what?
Well, I wouldn't understand why that would matter either if you have an A rating. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know. We can call them and ask them, but I don't think it. They still made it an A rating or an A grade for what they thought it was.
I wonder. I listened to a couple podcasts on this, and I wonder. They said that like sometimes if they have a really hard winter or a drought year or something, that it'll change the amount of cementum layering, and that could be an outlier in there or something.
I wonder if EHD has anything to do with it too.
That probably
As they go
could.
through it, Yep.
Yep, that probably could make a difference. So, so I think
So out of the 18 deer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
We
7,
sent
8, 18 bucks. Well, there was only 17. The one was a
Double
split
one.
from the same tooth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of them came from us. Actually, 11, and 7 from you. I think it was.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Is that right?
Yep.
And so Shane turned in 7. We turned in 11. Warren's deer hit right about where we thought he was. We don't have a lot of history with him. With Magnum, if you guys recall the buck that Warren shot this past year, we felt like he was 5 or 6 years old, and he came back at 5.
Yeah, he was definitely.
I honestly thought he was going to be 6 or 7 I could have sworn we wrote these down
No,
somewhere.
me and you disagreed on that throughout the summer, didn't we? Because we were looking
Yes.
at pictures.
You thought he was 5.
Yeah, and then you thought that he was older. And we both were sitting there like, it makes sense for him to be older, but
I thought he was 7,
Mhm.
and this is the reason I thought he was 7 is because going off of what we've seen so far on cementum aging, it seems like 6.5 is the best year, and then 7 they start to go downhill a little bit. And the first pictures that we had of him, his body was. I remember I sent you the pictures, and you're like, that thing's freaking huge.
Yep.
His body was gigantic, but he also, I thought originally that he'd gone downhill some. Looking back
we
now,
also only had 2 years of history with him.
yeah,
So we didn't
I mean,
know him well.
and I thought he was mature then because last year I think he was within an inch or two of himself. Before I thought he was quite a bit bigger the year before, but looking back now, I think that he was about
Roughly
the same. Yep.
He even actually might have gained an inch or 2.
Yeah, he might have because his right side was so big. But we didn't have much history, so I think 5 is absolutely believable on that. But I thought he was going to be older, and then so that one I think, and he weighed 226. I think we should just note the weights of these two because some of them were not that heavy, like Mom's, and I think that's interesting to note.
This might sound really nerdy, but we should just make a spreadsheet of just like that of our, like, what deer it is, the weight of it, and then what we all come up with as far as we think he's 5, we know that he is 5 or whatever.
I have it on my computer.
Well,
I have all the does.
Well, you know a lot of your stuff, but you don't know, like, if we put all of ours together so that we all know,
yeah, just get
like,
it.
certain deer that I'm hunting that I think are 3 or
Right.
4.
The other thing that that we'll do on this, so Nick, I hope you're up for it because you don't have a choice. We'll put in pictures of these deer. So we'll put in Magnum last year and then Magnum this year, and so you guys can look at them and see what you think.
It means you actually have to edit this one.
So like Magnum, you thought he was 7. It could have been that drought. I think extreme weather, like the drought this year. A
Yeah.
lot of my deer didn't grow. Some of them even went backwards, and they were 5 years old. They should have been jumping.
You're on my cord.
Well, in my
so you-
opinion, you have, I don't know how to say it, like, in our area with Elway and him, in my opinion, those two seem like very similar in age deer, and Elway barely did anything either. And they were both large caliber deer, large caliber bodies, and he only did what would we come up with 5 to 10 inches maybe, and Magnum did 2, 3.
Split brow did the same thing. I killed him at 5, maybe 6. What did it say? Split brow was 5 or 6 on there.
Split brow, it said
I think 5.
5.
The thing that would be interesting, though, is, rancher will tell you that drought years is better.
I've heard that.
Because they say that, like John will tell you that a drought year is better for antler growth because there's more minerals in the grass and stuff, that as long as your population isn't too much where they're eating it all, that you get more antler growth because there's more minerals and stuff in the grass for them to get to. So I don't know if I don't know. I mean,
Personally, I don't see that, but it may be different.
I don't necessarily agree with that in the Midwest.
I don't know. I've heard that theory too, because that goes to elk. And when you go to elk and you look at the Missouri Breaks is not a lush green area. It looks almost like the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. Yet the elk are huge. However, at the same time, you'll hear a lot of people talk about, and again, I don't know whether they're right or not. You see a lot of bulls that grow, their fronts are really big, their thirds are good. Then you get to the Royals and back, and they're real short, and they're like, yeah, that's when our rain quit. That's when the drought hit, and so that they couldn't finish off what they were growing. I've heard that numerous times. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I do know this, that where I elk hunted this past year, and they've hunted there now for over 20 years, killed over 100 elk off that ranch. And this year's elk were far smaller than what they've been in the past. I mean, and the guy that runs the whole place was saying that he thought it was because of the drought. So
what do you see on heavy precipitation years?
So
you just feel like your bigger deer do more, or more deer make bigger jumps, or what is it that you see that's different?
That 4 to 5 year old jump, usually you get a pretty good growth. We've had some drought years so far since I've been to Iowa in 2016. I think we've had 2 pretty severe drought years, and they hit, like he said, right in July when they were really trying to finish off, and it's just like they stopped growing. So I don't know, your 2 to 3 year old jump, those deer are healthy, young, and they're, kind of like a teenage guy. He's going to do good no matter what. Once you start getting a little bit older, like you get hurt, like Dave and I get hurt right now, it takes us longer to heal up than it would you in Easton. So you guys are in that 2 to 3 year old range. Probably we're in that 4 jumping to 5. We're not going backwards yet, I don't think.
Or 7.
We may
I feel like I'm 7.
We may be getting 7, but
he doesn't have the right drugs.
I don't have any.
This is
they're not going to be able to do a cementum process because I won't have any damn teeth left by the time.
How many variables are you supposed to take into consideration?
Well, okay, but hold on, because here's one that I do recall. So I'm a kid. I'm living in Virginia, and we had a major flood that year. I mean, it flooded everywhere. Picnic tables were up in trees that you were walking underneath.
Sounds like a smart thing to walk under.
Well, you didn't know that it was all the firewood was up in the trees. You had no idea until you got.
Imagine walking down the sidewalk and getting hit with a picnic table.
I literally had to go re-sight a gun in because a cut piece of firewood fell out of a tree and hit my scope. Because you would hold on to the trees to pull yourself up the hill because all the mud and silt had settled down on the road, and we drove to where as far as we could, then had to walk from there. But my point is, that year in Virginia, they had a record kill. And the reason that they had the record kill was because button bucks grew horns. These button bucks all had antlers. It was all that, I don't know about Kentucky, but in Virginia, a legal buck is any buck that has antlers that are visible above the hairline. So as long as it had it, and so the button bucks actually grew like little tiny and tons of, I killed one. It was a button.
Spikes or something.
They were considered a spike buck. And so all these spike bucks were getting killed that were actually button bucks that grew, and everyone, and it was a flood year. And it was, so that's the only time I've seen it in my years of hunting.
See, maybe that was just that there was fish on fields and stuff they weren't supposed to, and they were eating fish oil.
I guess. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like there's so many things
I thought you were on drugs, not him today.
Okay,
That's
so
Warren every day.
but our point is let's talk about aging, because the reason that we agree with the ages that we got is because we felt like we had some we didn't know them, and we had to kind of guess.
Yep.
And so he came back at in a range of where we thought.
Let's go with the ones that we do know then. So Magnum, we agreed on 5. That seems reasonable. And we only had 1 year history with him. Easton's 3. And go ahead and show his sheds.
Neighbor brought his sheds in, and I mean they're absolutely identical.
If it gives you a reference, I don't know.
That's
These
a
sheds,
heck of a 2-year-old, but
these sheds are like maybe 120 if we're lucky.
But
And
he still has this knob this year, but it's
Yeah.
longer. He had every point was grown exactly the same way. The only thing that he was starting to do, he was actually going to possibly grow a 6 point on either side.
Yeah. Well, these are like maybe 120, and he went 146. So
So he blew up 26 inches in
pretty
a
big
year.
jump.
On a
And-
dry year.
did you?
On a dry year.
We weighed him, right?
He was 180s and 190 something, wasn't he?
I thought it
No,
was 147.
he was light. I mean, I want to say 170. So I have it written down at home.
I don't think
He was definitely well under 200. I knew that.
Okay. So Easton's, I think we all believe that's probably
Yeah, when
accurate.
I saw him, I thought he was 4.
4.
Like when we saw him on the ground,
Yeah.
we were like, "This is not
A
as old of a
5-year-old.
deer as we thought.
Right.
This is definitely like probably maybe 4, and
Mhm.
he's 3." So
Well, I think too it's hard because by the end of the year, at least archery season, they start to look rough.
yeah,
You
he
know.
had scars and stuff all over him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nick's was 3.
We knew that.
I honestly thought it was going to be 2.
Yeah, it was. I think that was a good one to find out that he was 3
Yes.
because that came off of one of Shane's places, and we'd rather have seen him because he was a nice buck, but he wasn't. For 3 years old, you'd like to see him farther along than where that deer was.
His neck was swelling up pretty good, so it was a good chance he was going to be 3. But I was like Warren when looking at his rack, you would think he was 2.
Right.
Typically, that's what 2-year-olds look like there. But he was pretty good body size. I mean, his neck was swollen up, and I just think he might be 3.
KB 8 to 9. We know that one for sure. And we'll put those in here. We got the pictures of him. That one we're 100% agreeance. Mitch's deer 2.
That might be the most devastating one on this page.
Well, there's no way that's it right.
That one. That's the only other one I could say that I feel like could be incorrect. I'm really curious once we get to yours.
That's Mitch's.
Because
right?
No, Mitch's is already off to Wayland's, I think.
Oh,
isn't it?
where's that one from?
That's 11. That's his deer.
Oh, he's got a screwed up antler too.
Yeah, remember he.
Well, hold on. We're gonna get to
That's
that
Oh,
one.
yeah. Okay.
So if Mitch's deer was 2, that one is a mega heartbreaker because that deer was gonna be
Massive.
probably 240,
I would go on.
maybe 260. I don't know.
Shoot for
Oh,
280.
make it as bad as you can. Let's go 310.
I don't think that deer can be 2.
He had so much mass, and he was breeding a lot of does too. I mean, he'd run.
If I
bucks
remember
off.
right,
If he
he's-
was 2. He was the Chuck Norris of 2 because
How thick was his skull cap?
It was pretty thick.
It was
I
pretty
thought-
thick.
I
It was
thought I
still here
remembered-
when we got this back.
I thought I remembered it being pretty thick too.
What was? Did you guys weigh him, or do you remember if you did?
I'm sure we did, but I don't
Okay.
remember what he weighed.
Anyways, Brahma, 6 years old, and that one I think we would.
We thought for sure that he was 6. You thought he was 7. I thought he was 6.
I thought he was at least 6 to 7. Yeah, just going off because we had several years of pictures of him where you could tell he was a mature deer and he never really did anything different.
Right.
So Brahma we agreed upon. Karen, mom's deer, 5. We thought he was 3. But then after we never had went back and looked at photos. I went back in the trail cameras and we looked at pictures and he definitely was 5. We had pictures of him at 4 and 3 and he was that
Same
was
deer.
accurate.
Anything?
He just got there and stayed there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Flat crab 4. How do you feel about that one? We don't know on that deer.
flat crab is the one that got ran over or a buck fight and died. I found him dead. I thought he was 3 or 4. He could win either way, and that's what it came back there, 3 or 4. I wish it was more specific so I could close that one out in my mind. Doesn't matter now, but I feel like he was probably 4. I mean,
He was just shy of 180, right?
185 is what you scored him at.
185.
Yep.
I think that deer was 4.
And 4 is the number they gave him.
Yeah.
And 3 or 4 was the age range, but
Right.
4 is what they said.
But
With
he
an
was
A
a small
rating.
body. When I found
No,
him,
he
Or
was
is
the
that
only B.
Was that the one in the rain, though?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I sent you
yeah.
a video of him in the rain. He looked like a 4-year-old in that
To
video,
me, he
didn't
looked 4
Yeah,
for
he's-
sure. Yeah. Brett's deer, 5. 100%.
We knew that deer.
Yep. He was the same thing every year. Absolutely 5-year-old deer. Back to where we were. So Marty's 3.
Time in.
Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Just from what you could tell. Okay. Ben's deer, 5. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, Ben's deer was 5. It was a.
You knew that deer?
Yeah, he was an 8-pointer. Had been around for a long time. I thought he might be 5 or even 6, but I would go with 5.
He was like a 120-some-inch deer or something like that.
I would say he's 135.
Was he?
140. He
I
was a
don't
good
remember
8-pointer. Yeah.
Well, that's like Marty's deer. If he was 3, you're talking a mid 150s 3-year-old. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
he had some potential there.
Yeah, for sure. Ben's deer was 5. Okay, so Sticker 13, 4.
Yeah, and I thought he may have been 3. When I shot him, I was like, got to him. Uh-oh.
But this is the one you thought was going to die, right?
No.
No?
I didn't know this deer, zero history of him.
Was that the one with the split brows? No.
No, that's split brow.
Flipping deer did you shoot this year?
So this was last year. That's Ben's 8.
Oh, okay. That's not the deer he shot this year.
No.
You just saved their teeth for that long?
Yep. You all told me to save their teeth, so
So what did you do with this year deer? Teeth.
He's saving them for next year.
Yeah, that deer's.
I didn't realize he's
good
sending deer
Yeah.
in from last year.
that's his. He
Oh.
killed a giant.
That's a big deer.
I was going to say this year's deer that's definitely not this
See,
year.
that's how you get them old. You save their teeth there 4 years, then turn them in. They're like, oh yeah, he's old.
That's
Yeah, he's
he-
from the south. He thinks if he holds on to them another year, they're going to get older.
Yeah, when you killed it was 3, but now that it's sat for 2 years, he's 5.
Yeah, that's
They
Southern
continue to-
education.
I killed 2-year-olds, but then it looks like 5.
Okay, so Sticker 13 was which one?
Killed him last year. Bow
Okay,
kill.
last year.
Yep.
Okay. Almost 14. 5.
Don't worry about
Almost 9. And his almost 9. Yeah.
Why'd you call him almost?
No,
Every year he was almost a 9-pointer. It
Or
barely
almost.
come out.
yeah. Don't read that number next to him.
Okay,
That was
yeah,
me
that's
number
just
in
the
that.
number. Yeah.
And you agree with 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He was really good.
And Hightower, 5.
I thought he was
that was
5, possibly 6, but leaning towards 5.
That was your 200?
Yep.
Okay. Split brow, 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He could. I thought he might have been 6, but it's always tough at 3 to 4-year-old. Like when you don't really know them, and between 3 and 4, you're like, is he 3? Is he 4? So then you're always saying, is he 4 or 5? Is he 5 or 6?
Yeah.
So this is good to determine.
Dan, which was the second tooth for Mom's, 5. That one was agreed.
Should have
Okay.
named it Dan.
So now we got the discrepancy. The 11, which they are saying is 3, and you're saying that he's not possible that he's 3, and that this is all of the sheds. So this is great because we're going
Which
to be able
one
to look
is-
at the evidence and
the
see
11, okay.
what we all believe. You got his rack?
Yes.
Let's see this thing. Man, he's heavier than I remembered. You mounting him?
Yes.
Okay. So this was which year?
2020.
Okay, 2020.
Yep. 21.
2020.
2020.
2021. Oh. And this is match for 2021.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Give me the left side. I'll show him. So 2020, 2021. That's this year.
2022.
2022.
So,
Well, put it to this side. This is interesting. Year to year,
so this
he definitely got bigger. Quite a
Yeah,
bit
he
bigger.
did.
Every year.
I don't know.
What are we looking at? I don't
trying
understand
to-
how sheds are going to determine anything.
Well, to tell you
Well,
what,
is it the same deer
this
or
is the
not?
same deer.
And so then
I thought we already determined
it
it was the same deer.
Well,
I
Shane
think
is
he's-
determined it's the same deer, but we
didn't-
haven't voted on.
I was just assuming that we knew it was the same deer.
'Cause-
All right, let's disprove
Well,
Shane.
that's what we're saying is, so is that's what Shane's saying is you're telling him then if cementum aging is correct, that means, and these sheds are all to this deer, that antler right there is a 1.5-year-old deer.
Their birds should be the same year to year, right?
Well, they're going to get bigger. Yeah, they look very similar.
I think they look completely different. That's a perfect circle.
Well, here's
And that's
but here's what I'm going to look at is what I'm saying is I feel like this is the same
antler
deer.
looks the same.
This is the deer the next year. I'm just not sure that that's him. And I'm going off of the brow tine. It just seems like, in my opinion, what I've seen on brow tines is when the brow tines are short, they stay short. When they're long, they're long. They never, and the other characteristic that never seems to change, if your deer doesn't have mass at 1 and 2 years old, he's not going to ever grow it. Doesn't get into mass. You can see noticeable mass.
You don't think that's mass?
I think there's a lot of mass of this.
Average. I would say that's
above
average.
For
Iowa.
If that's a 2-year-old, though?
Well, yeah,
we're looking at a
2-year-old.
That's what you got to keep in mind, is assuming this is all the same deer. That's a flipping 2-year-old.
I'm going out on a limb here and saying that that's not the same deer. Those are two completely different pedicles. But he looks identical from the rack up.
But Shane's
what do you think,
theory,
Shane? You're not saying anything.
Because
he believes that they're the same.
I'm going to interject one thing here for Shane, because I know Shane's a deer nut, and I'll bet that half of the information that you have is you're going off of habits. Would that be true?
Habits, yes. Bedding areas, habits.
I don't.
Thousands of trail. It's homebody. He's there all the time.
Stays there all the time.
So
I don't question Shane's knowledge whatsoever, because he knows a lot more than us.
I can see him biting his lip.
Yeah, I know he
No,
is. I don't know why he is.
No, I'm good with being wrong.
You need to talk.
But I do think, real quick, we should explain for people that the thing that puts this whole thing in question is, if you aren't able to watch the podcast right now, the right side on the deer, when you killed him, is whack. Now it's all crazy. And so
you knew.
You had a theory on that, though, right?
Right.
And I agree with you on the theory that when that happens, you're going to get something messed up.
Now, this would be the only
Hold on.
time,
Let's make sure that people understand what that is that we're talking about. Can you hold that up, Shane, and show people?
So when I found his right side shed, he had a big bird that broke off. And from previous experience with other bucks, when they broke off like that, this deep, they would throw something funky. I had a deer die the year before that as a 5-year-old. His 4-year-old shed done the same thing. And another reason I know this is the same deer, like I don't have his right side as my neighbor found it, but if you let's see. So see this 6th point?
It looks just like this side, flip sides. This side looks just like this side.
Right. But he had the same thing when he was, if that's 1.5 years or 2.5. If I had this other shed my neighbor found, it's exactly like that. So Drake, Drake, the clothing company, their symbol, I almost named this deer Drake because that looks like the Drake symbol right there.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it was really, every time, so he had 5 on his left and 6 on his right each year, other than the year that he went funky from the shed.
I wish I knew a single Drake song, because I was going to make a rap joke.
Well, that would be the only time you typically find an injured deer growing his antlers screwed up the next year on the same side, right?
No, they say it has to do with whether it's a front leg injury or a back leg injury. And I'll probably mess it up. If it's a front leg injury, I think that they expect to see the same side affected. If it's a back leg injury, it flip-flops.
I think that any injury is opposite.
No, I'm telling you now, it's not the case.
I don't know how much I agree with that, considering based on things I've seen.
Well, Shane also
So this wouldn't be
photos.
body injury. This
No, that's what I'm saying, is that's direct to the antler.
Direct to the
I feel
antler,
like
yeah.
it'd definitely be his right antler would still be screwed up the following
Yeah,
year.
because he's got a hole.
It's really messed up.
So when I caped him out, and the reason I killed this deer, I actually thought he was 4. He had a pass until he come out like this. I was hoping he didn't have anything screwed up. But the deer that died the year before, he died like mid-November, and no bullet holes or anything. Ben and I found him, and he was just dead, and we couldn't find any reason why he would be dead. And I talked to a biologist, and he said, I told him about it was even longer than this. He said that'll kill him 90% of the time. So I started reading a little bit. Everyone says the same thing. Good chance it's going to kill him. So I talked to my neighbors, and I'm like, hey, what do you guys want to do? And everybody agreed we probably should shoot him. And I'm glad I did, because when I caped him out, and there was, in his brain area, there was a lot of pus in there, but on top it was crazy, all the pus that was up here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
What am I looking at this for?
You can look at the body and stuff and see, to me, that body there in that picture doesn't look like a 3-year-old deer.
His stomach doesn't. His neck doesn't. His neck is still little. Why can you not zoom in on Tacticam?
According to an article that I found back on National Deer Association from 2013, though not always, leg injuries often affect future antler growth on the opposite side of the buck's body.
Right, but what we're saying is, what about the front leg? Yeah, front. What I've read where front legs don't.
Well, Nick gave us plenty of subject matter to study that this year.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see it next year. This deer, this picture, I feel like his neck doesn't match his body.
What date is that picture?
I don't know, man. I think
The October 6th.
I will say if the skull cap stuff has anything to do with it, that's his
Not.
skull is not that thick. But that
I don't know. I'm having a hard time between these two, that year to year.
I could easily buy that this was 2. I could definitely get that. I'd have a hard time believing that
Yeah,
is
his
a
body
1-year-old
looks
rack. Yeah.
massive. I agree.
Have we ever had another deer that we could state that was like that at 1?
The only one that would be close is what I believe straight up is 1, and he just doesn't have this.
The G4.
He doesn't have the G4. He's just a G1, G2.
What about the 9? He was pretty close, I think.
Yeah,
wasn't he?
he could have been close at 1. We might have had a 120-inch kind of rack. But this is
That's
probably
a big 1-year-old right there.
yeah. But at the same time,
how much weight are you putting on a pedicle?
well, I just guess I wish I knew him better. I mean, I think
Hey,
there's
Nick,
a ton of weight you can put
Go
on.
grab a few sheds of deer that on the rack that are the same deer.
Yeah, because I don't think they
Like
change. I think
Junior
they
and
change a
Hammer?
little from year to year.
You do?
Yeah, because like split brow, you could tell. I mean, there was no doubt that he was
It's
the same
him.
deer. His would look a little bit different every year. And the thing about 11, when I killed him there, that deer field dress 217. You ever seen a 3-year-old? I've never seen a 3-year-old field dress 217.
217.
Yep, 217.
There's only one that I know of that I think was field dress 217. That was Juice.
And he could have
Yes,
been.
he was.
He
Or-
was
or-
already in that. He already had that look that was oddball big.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Just an outlier, you know. That the other one was I killed one that was 265 at 5, gutted. So
He could have been.
I would
yeah,
think at 3 he'd probably be
2 plus.
217,
Yeah.
you know,
Yep,
somewhere
you're
in
right.
there.
so
Do you
So
think we're going to have the same deer come back, or do you think that he's going to bring a bunch of random sheds?
I'm hoping that he's able to bring
He's
some.
got-
of the
I'm
same
hearing a
ones
lot of
back.
clunking in
as
there. They're all
long as he
next-
doesn't come back and tell us, well, I drank milk this morning, so I can't remember what I was looking for.
No one's gonna get that but us. But
Yeah.
man, I don't know. So what are you guys saying?
That
Same
de-
deer,
That
and it's,
deer's not 3. Whether they are the same deer or not, he's not 3.
how old do you think he is then?
If we're going off that, I think he's at least 4 or 5.
Off of what?
His pictures alone, that's not a 3-year-old deer. No way. Here's Junior for you.
What's your thought, Dad?
Okay. What am I supposed to do with all these?
Here, hand me one.
We don't have a match to this, do we? Wait.
Well, that's a.
Yeah, this is not. Wait.
Number
Since when did
3.
we have? This is
No.
Hammer, ain't it?
But they're
They're not the same
one year.
freaking-
One is
I
1
was
year,
gonna
one's
say.
the other year.
I don't
Those
know.
are
What,
pretty-
well, I guess
those
you
are pretty
could kind of
similar.
look at it though. Good Lord, his bases are huge.
That one's not a very. That's not the same side, but
No, it's not the same side. I was just looking at year to year.
See,
Like
That-
an oval shape. But
see
he's got
that to
some
me looks
differences.
identical.
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty well.
Is that same year? No.
No, same side, 2 years in a row.
This to me looks pretty dang.
No. Look,
I
the
mean-
one is a perfect circle, and the other one is not. Your one on your right is a perfect circle. I can't get over these antlers right now. Holy cow! I've not held these in a while.
They look big on the wall, but you hold them there. That's
They're heavy.
giant.
They're so freaking heavy.
That deer was a toad.
What happened
That doesn't
here?
even sound right.
Neighbor killed him. He actually went downhill a little bit the year after that right side shed,
Mm.
and then he killed him. Yeah,
I-
I was.
I guess I'm gonna agree. I think that you're looking at just one of those outliers. I think that he was 3 years old.
So you agree it's the same deer, and you think he's a 3.
I do.
I think I agree with Shane as far as I do think it's the same deer. I don't know if he's. I don't know if I don't know if he. If I
Well,
can buy
I'm
his
going
3.
off of everything on here too. They've gotten right.
Yeah,
Everything.
and we've had lots of other years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I would like to. I think we should call him and ask him to look at it again, because I wonder if maybe his injury could have affected his
Didn't think
teeth
about
something,
that. Yeah.
and where the line is closer or something, and they didn't look close enough, and it was different because on a few of those podcasts and stuff I'd listened to, like even the people that were on from the aging thing had somebody call them one time from Texas because they had these deer that were earmarked or whatever, and they're like, hey, you guys got these ones wrong, and they're like, what? And then they went back and they looked, and there was some outlier. It was a drought year or something like that, and they looked and they were able to confirm. They're like, yeah, you were right, we did have them wrong, and and then they were like, was there some kind of something here that happened in this year and this year? And then those guys were able to tell them, yeah, there was a drought or whatever. So I'd be worth calling them to see, and maybe that injury caused something where they were like 4. I could buy for sure. I could absolutely buy 4.
See, I had him at 4, maybe 5, but leaning really towards 4. But my thought process is, if that's 3, tickles me to death I'm wrong. I've got really good genetics.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm having a hard time
2,
believing it's even the same deer.
I can buy 2-year-old. I can buy that as a 2-year-old rack, like just one of those freak 2-year-olds. I got a hard time buying that as 1.
There's not even a hint of that G5
Yeah, but
anywhere.
Oh, right here.
The eye guard looks completely different.
That I see them do all the time, where they'll flip the sides of the.
I could see that, but I'm just saying you got 2 years in a row. If that is the same deer, that is no even hint for it. Tiny eye guards. The only similarities, even the G4 doesn't look exactly the same. The G2 and 3 do, but that's it.
That's pretty common over there at my farm. The 4 sometimes will be longer, especially when they throw that 5 out. It'll take away from the 4.
This one here.
Start looking at the curves in this too.
Yeah, because he has exactly on his G2 as well.
Yeah, and then this 3's make exactly.
Yeah, and it goes the same angle too.
Well, you'd think about it like this though. Too. think about Magnum's rack this year. If you looked at Magnum, like if we'd have been inspecting him this close compared to his rack last year, you wouldn't have said that's the same deer. But partly what I'm going off of is the habits and everything. Pretty sure there wasn't 280-inch deer right there that were
doing the same thing.
Yeah.
If that deer's not any of this, so he just showed up out of nowhere, because I keep pretty good inventory with cameras. It makes it easy to do, and I'm fortunate enough to have time to spend a lot of time on the farm. I don't know who it would be. Because, I mean, all the deer showed up from the year before. And, okay, here's this one. Here's, Wicked 2, Cotton, all of them. And so it almost, if it's not him, he disappeared. 11 never showed up this year. And another buck showed up in his place and had the exact same habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to
That's
believe.
just
I will say, though, that I believe that I am able to recognize deer as good or better than almost anybody. Because I have, like, a photographic memory when it comes to deer, and I've had a few where I had to eat my words.
Right.
That were really hard for me to swallow, because I looked at them and then I was like, and they had something. There was one, that's where it was. It was at the farm, at our northern farm, Dad, and there was 2 10s. And I think they might have been brothers or something.
I called them the twin 10s.
Because they were same places all the time and absolutely flipping identical.
They were the same.
Like unbelievably similar. And then I don't think it was till the next year that we finally figured out that there was 2 of them.
Me and Dad had them both come on
something like that.
Me and Dad had them both come together under our stand.
Right.
Oh yeah, there you go. So you popped out 2 of them.
Yeah.
But
I think that it's the same
is
deer.
100% this deer.
Yeah, I think he just swapped that.
I mean, he just swapped sides, and the straight up did that often with that one G4. He would throw it over to the other side, and so because this and this are a match set, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
These 2 go together.
Yep.
But why on earth did
he was so running the same habit so much? Ben and I called. Like, once we decided we was going to shoot that deer, the neighbors and I told Ben, I said, I'm going to kill him mid-October in the split brow field. That's where I killed him at.
Oh, I believe you. I think it is the same deer. He could be 3. That antler right there is the one that really I can buy this as 2. I could buy that as a 2-year-old deer in Iowa that's got good genetics. That is a 1-year-old. I'm just having a hard time buying that. But we don't shoot a lot of 1-year-olds either, so I don't really know, had them aged or anything. But I don't know that we've ever seen a 1-year-old that's quite got a rack like that.
And I hope it is.
Yeah, I mean,
I was going to shoot him whether it was 3, 4, or 5, because I knew he was going to die from it.
Doesn't matter,
right? And if that's the case, he ran with a lot of does, so I'm sure he bred them. And I would have hopefully those same genetics coming back.
Yeah.
So maybe we should answer a question for people. Why does it? There's probably a lot of people going, well, what do you even care? I mean, big is big. Shoot them when they're big. But our whole thing is we're trying to kill, giving them the most potential to get for them to reach their potential. And that's 5 years old. And I'll go out on another limb because we're now probably 5 or 6, 7 years into this of understanding the ages. And there's tons, and I know some of these guys, and I would sit right here, I'd have them come in here and we'd argue, but that are telling me, or not telling me, telling the public that they're seeing 7, 8, 9-year-old deer jump back. And we have yet to see that happen on any farm. That we have seen 5 years old is a peak. 6 might be a little bit bigger. It can be.
I feel like 6 we've seen the biggest racks.
Yeah,
but
I mean, they kind of hold. But at 7, they don't do anything if not slightly going downhill. And by the time they're 8, they are going downhill.
7 may have a little more mass at the bases and things like that, but
Yep.
shorter tines and heavier tines.
Yeah,
and
you
then
can
start getting shorter.
they
Yep.
get the characteristics of a rack that's on its way downhill.
I agree with that.
But we have yet to see anyone of our deer on any of the farms that and we're keeping ages. I think 2016, maybe 15. If I had my computer out here. So 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Now we're into 20. We wouldn't have 23 ages. So we've got 7 years of history, and we haven't seen a single jump in the 7+ range.
And that's over 70 or 80 deer, if not 100.
It's quite a few. I mean,
have we had any others other than KB and Bullwinkle make it past 6 that we killed?
oh, I wish I had brought
That's
my computer
a
out
tough
here.
one.
Well, I thought Hershey was 7 because he looked short and stubby and wasn't as big as the last year, and he was 5, wasn't he?
Yeah.
How old was Junior? But we didn't
6.
kill him. He was 6.
Yeah.
But remember, we thought Juice was 6, and he came back as 5.
Yeah.
And
He was a freaking.
freak of nature.
That's where he
and
got his name, Juice, though, is because he was on
Touch was
roids.
old, wasn't he? Or was he
He
only
was 5.
He was 5.
Man, I've killed a lot of 5-year-olds.
That's a good thing.
I think
well,
my 10
so
was 5 too, wasn't he? We didn't know him. We thought he was going
Right.
to be 5.
If you take this into consideration, though, then Bullwinkle, we know was 8. I mean, we were confident. We were 9 at the youngest, and from his peak year,
9 at the youngest? Or,
we were thinking that he could have been 9.
oh, okay.
6 years old, he was like 188 or 190 or like 188 or something like that, going off the sheds that other dude's got.
Right.
So he was a 188-inch deer at 6. Then when I killed him, he was 172. So, he lost, 14 inches, something like that. And then KB, East and I killed him this year when he was 6. I'm just guessing. I think he was in the mid-70s, probably in the mid-70s.
When he was 6.
When he was 6.
Yeah.
Because he had
You
like
killed him when he was 7.
16
or 8.
scoreable points or something like
He's
that.
8.
8, yeah.
Yeah, so he was probably in the 170s, and then this year when I killed him with the broke stuff, he was 137 or 139. So mid-140s with broke. So that's the 2 deer that we've had so far, we know we're 8, each lost close to 20 inches.
Right.
And other people are telling us that they're growing 20 inches.
We haven't seen it.
I think that they're off on their ages, and those what they think is 8 is actually 5 to 6.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
I would tend to agree.
Good thing about this, we'll get better at it each year because I'm going to be wrong.
As long as this is accurate.
Right. As long as
If this
that's
isn't
accurate,
accurate, then we're all
Right.
screwed.
we're
You
screwing,
know
we're
what I'm
screwing
saying?
ourselves,
I'm
aren't
going to
we?
call them, though, and ask them if they'll take a look at that one, that we know that the deer was injured. I might even need to take a picture of the burr.
Yeah.
And say, here's what the injury was. Can you guys take a look at that if you still have the specimen? And
So what do they go off of when they're I'm not for sure on that, and I'm sure the audience would like to know that too. How do they age them? Is it ringed like a tree?
Exactly like that.
Okay.
So it's what they take those bottom 2 that we cut out, and then they cut them in half laterally, right?
Yeah.
And then it's just like rings on a tree where they
Okay.
can see, they are able to look at it through a microscope, and then they can see is what they're doing is basically looking at the different amount of cementum in between each ring. And that tells them a year, right? And so that's what they were saying on the one where they had a drought or whatever it was in Texas, that the lines were abnormally close to one another. And so they hadn't seen those. And so they accidentally missed
a year.
So the tooth probably didn't grow
as much because of the drought.
Drought.
Yes.
Yep.
And they just weren't looking close enough or something, that they missed that line in the cementum there, and so then they were off on the number. But from everything I've read, this is supposed to be extremely accurate. They've taken molars. That's the other way that people do it, is they look at the molars, right?
Yep.
And they've taken biologists that all went to school for it and everything and given it to them, and their accuracy, I remember this because it was so bad, was 33.8%. That's how accurate those guys were on.
It's not good.
On looking at the molars in aging deer. So this is supposedly way more accurate. And from everything I've listened to, it's pretty accurate. And then now we've got a pretty good set of our own numbers that I think that it's got to be nice. I would be really interested to see if you've got the first one where we can definitely say they're off, because that too would
Thought
be
we had one
in
other that
80 or something like that.
that they had made that we were very questionable of.
Mitch's.
Not this year.
Mitch's deer was one that we questioned.
A couple years ago.
No, this year.
No, I'm saying there was
Yeah.
one from a couple other years ago that we were very skeptical of. I don't remember which one it was.
The only thing I'd say about this, though, is I think that for all these people that do listen to what we're talking about, I've talked to several people. I even talked to some other people on a podcast that sent in teeth, and then they'll tell you the deer was 8 years old, and the tooth came back at like 5 or 6, and they're like, no, there's no way. And then I'll ask them, well, how many years did you know the deer? And I never knew him, but this deer was 8.
Yeah.
And you got to be humble enough to look at this stuff and say, okay, I'm probably wrong.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think most of the deer that we've seen now, we're starting to realize that it's pretty rare to have one that gets to 5. 6, 7, 8 is
I agree.
really, really rare.
And I'm with you. I've eat crow several times on judging deer and things like that. And the only reason I feel so confident in this deer is one that I watched because he was young, a year and a half, 2.5, whatever he is there, with 11 points. So I thought, he's got when they have more than 8 points, because that farm's eat up with 8-pointers. It's like 8-pointers on top of 8-pointers. And then when they had come out with 11, really young, kept a pretty good eye on him, hoping that, he'd blow up. And I think he was on the way to doing that, especially if he got another year, if he hadn't got that injury. But
Oh yeah, I mean he was.
Yeah, he wouldn't have
turning
made
into
it
a really good
regardless.
deer. But that's why I believe you, is because I know how much you're obsessed with your deer, and I do the same thing as far as like I can just remember them. Like Easton will ask me, he's like, Warren, what deer is this? And when I really think about how I'm recognizing it, half of the information I'm taking is what camera was it, and then I'm looking for one little thing on his rack. I'm like, oh, that's this deer, and 9 times out of 10 it is, because there wasn't a new buck that moved in or anything like that, and it's the same deer. But so I believe you. I think it is the same deer, and I could buy 3 still, but the year-and-a-half-old rack is the one that just have a hard time believing that's a 1.5-year-old.
that's why when David said 11-3, and I was like, well, they're wrong, because that's the first thing I thought of was that shed right there.
Yeah.
I'm like, gosh, if that's a year-and-a-half-old deer, and I guess it can be, because you do have freak deer that's, these 240s, how big were they when they were a year and a half?
Yeah.
But then you don't really know how the potential until they get 3, because a year and a half, 2.5 really doesn't show up anything, then you can't,
Right.
Yep. Well, and I think that I think everybody thinks that Iowa, we have all the age class of all these super old deer, and that's where we get these 150, 160-inch deer. I think that people just don't understand our genetics are that good. They're killing 3-year-old deer that are 150 inches and 160 inches.
Absolutely.
Yes, they are. Right, Easton?
Yeah.
We have proof there. But
That's the youngest deer I've killed in a long time.
But when we go back to Juice, when he comes back at 5, and then we go back through and look at the pictures, that put him the year that he almost shot him. He was 2 years old. And, I mean, at 2 years old, he was like 135, 140.
He also was a stallion. Like, I
Yeah,
remember
he
there's
was
pictures of him. We had pictures of him next to his feeder, and the deer, he didn't have any gut or anything yet, but, like, just his height. He was like half. I remember even before we knew who it was, we had a tab for him called Gigantor, because he just towered over him. It was unbelievable how big that deer was.
Well, what else? I think we've covered the aging process pretty well here, guys. So if you guys are looking at getting your deer aged, the place we're using is Matson Labs. They're not a sponsor of ours or anything like that. It just they have done the best work that we have seen as far as aging and stuff like that. So we've used those guys. If you want to send them in, I think Shane and I talked about it when we were wrong. I think it's somewhere between $15 and $20 per set of teeth, and the more teeth you send in, then the price goes down. But anyhow, it takes a little while. I mean, we got these back April 15th, I think, and we turned them in
January, February.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, a
so.
couple months, I would
yeah,
think.
so it's 2-3 months. But I mean, it's not like their deer are dead if you got their teeth. So you're not like you're in a big hurry. So, but it is if you own a piece of ground, it's worth your time to understand your deer a little better and understand whether or not they are 3 or 4 or 5.
If you're wanting to know those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, it's not so much for the public land guy that if you let a deer go, he's going to get killed. But it is more for those out there that have a piece of ground, or maybe you don't own it, but you have permission to hunt it, where you could pass a deer and he has a chance of living, But I'll go back to Juice. I'm sure, Shane, some of the deer that that you're talking, like who was the one you said that was 230-some pounds dressed? Didn't you kill one that was really, really big, or is that one that he was talking about?
I had one at 257.
Okay, so
Yeah.
257 pounds. You don't think you're gonna see a 3-year-old like that,
Right.
and probably not.
Yeah.
But this oddball that you have that's 200 and something could be from 3 to 5 years old in Iowa or older. And then you're gonna see 170-pound 2-year-olds to 8-year-olds.
They're just like people.
Yes.
Yep.
You know.
Some people, naturally going to be bigger than others.
Yep. So it's just it's all over the board. It really is. It's nice when you do see a Brahma or a Magnum. You can look at them and know they're not young.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But
I told you though too last year. If I had killed Magnum last year, I'd have been adamant that deer was not 4. I'd have been like, he's at least a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
I mean, because he was back even last year. He was just bigger than everybody else.
the deer that you killed, we didn't have a name for him. The 10 you killed the year before.
Yeah.
Okay, so he came back. We thought for sure that deer was older, but then when he grew the same rack the next year, we thought, well, maybe he's not. Maybe he's 7. Maybe because he didn't really grow much. He just
He was
I think we
though,
thought he
wasn't
was younger. Remember, we thought this deer was only 3 or something,
At
and then he didn't do anything.
right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I thought he was like 4 going on 5, and instead it turned out we thought he was 6 going on 7.
And what did he end up being?
Came back at 6.
I thought he was 5.
I think he was 5.
Pretty sure he was 5. I think we thought he was going to be 3 and was going to be 4, and he was going to do a 20-inch jump, and he ended up not doing anything. And so then we figured he's probably 5 or 6.
So shoot him.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then we shot him, and he was 5.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So when you shot Magnum, I thought he was probably 6 as well. Just
Yeah.
looking at him. I mean, he had that old look to him, and
From his body and everything,
his head was real wide, his forehead. I mean,
Yep. I think their heads is somewhat of an indicator. It seems like their heads keep growing for whatever reason, because some of those old deer, their heads are just freaking huge.
Yeah, even if their body doesn't correspond, doesn't get the same girth.
Brahma was the same way.
Yeah, Brahma's head was big,
Yeah.
but Brahma's body was
Big too.
yeah, he was a big deer.
So
he was 220, 230, wasn't he?
yeah,
That
he
was-
Dressed.
mine and him and Magnum weighed the exact same to the ounce.
Yeah.
Like I had to check my scale because I thought there's no way that they weigh the exact same amount.
Right.
Then, and then he was like, really though, Brahma's a lot bigger because yours has 2 pounds of antler on his head. But then KB, that one's interesting. So he was 8 years old, and he was 130.
Oh, he was tiny.
140
7 or something like
Yeah,
that.
but the time of year too. I mean, killing him in January.
I don't think that
Still.
mattered. I think that deer was so old.
There was something
He
wrong
was-
with him too, I think.
He would limp every once in a while on his back leg too when I saw him coming in.
When
And when you killed him, you could see like a weird
it was like a
growth or
softball.
something on him. Yeah, he had lived a long life. He needed to go.
Yeah, because he had a huge gut. Like
Yeah.
you looked at him, you're like, that deer's ancient, and like he just was starting to.
Yeah, and then when we went to
Disintegrate.
load him up, it felt like a doe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, this is nice.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Shane. Thank you for bringing these in. I mean, it always makes it interesting when Shane stops by, and I think I don't know if we've solved anything or just made it more muddled or not, but we're gonna check and we'll do an update. We might not do an entire podcast on it, but we'll see if we can find out if these guys might be wrong on one deer, and that could be the case. But if not, if they were to go back and look and came back and said, no, we're 3, then I agree. If you ever decide to sell any of that property, let me know because I'd like to buy some of it.
That'd be a great 3-year-old, wouldn't it? Really good 1.5-year-old.
So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for being here for the Raised Hunting Podcast and listening to everything that we got going on. I can't thank you guys enough for those that have done it and put down reviews. But we want to ask the rest of you to continue to do so. Those help tremendously. Continue to send in. We still have people doing it, but it seems to have slowed down some. We want your topics because we know there's certain things that you guys were excellent on the turkey stuff. We covered a lot of different turkey stuff.
We still can do some more turkey stuff,
Yep.
too.
We know that there's many of you that your turkey seasons are just starting. So anyhow, just get a hold of us, and that's what we're here for, is to try to – we love doing what we do, but we also love helping you guys do what you do as well. So from the Raised Hunting team and from Shane, thank you again. We'll see you next time.